Hi guys, welcome back to another video. Today I have a special host for you. That's my beautiful Celogenous ovalis brown, and I have a different content. So we're gonna talk about special features of orchid flowers, and I'm not showing my face because I hurt my back. It's fine, and I'm not feeling up to it, but I will keep showing you these plants and I'll give you some b-rolls. We're gonna talk about sensory deception, exploring pollinarian mechanisms, and also ultra long nectar spurs. So all of them are things that orchids use to attract their pollinators, and how these happen, what happened to these flowers, and what they do. It's truly incredible. I think it's nice to dive into something that's a bit different. So let's go. I'm using this one because I think it looks like a bee, don't you? For me, it looks like an insect a lot. And there is a reason. I think I've spoken about these plants and about Celogenous before. The reason why the lip is all fuzzy is because that is actually for the insect to land on this massive lip here. So there is a reason that this plant looks like it. It's not for us to admire and say, hey, it's amazing. It is amazing, but it is like a platform for insects. Let's talk about sensory deception. So what happens is, orchids are masters of deception. As you can imagine, I've spoken to you in a video before about the bee orchid, the Ophiris. So what happened with the bee orchid is that their lip visually and chemically mimic the female bees. The bee orchid is really amazing because it will look like a female bee. So the male bee will try to mate, and when it tries to mate, he will transfer the pollinia, so the pollen bundles on themselves. So what happens is, as you can imagine, we're gonna have a pollination success. So they are very, very intelligent, I would say. Not that they have brains, but you can understand evolution is amazing. Scientists call this process a Pollinian mimicry. As you can imagine, I had to read that because honestly I wouldn't memorize this name. But yeah, I think this plant is amazing. And the Corianthus also has something similar. And the lip is going to be slippery and it's going to be like a bucket. So when the bee comes closer to the plant, what will happen is they try to climb and then will fall inside, and the pollinia again will be on the back of the bee, and the bee will then has to squeeze to pass through, and we have another pollination success. This one is fragrant, and the fragrance will attract the pollinator that will have to come to the plant and grab the pollen and travel to another orchid. Some species of Celogeny, not this one specifically, they do something that they use food deception pollination. What this means is that they will mimic the same type of food that the insects enjoy, and for this reason the insect get attracted to the flower thinking that's their food, but actually it's not, it's just the flower mimicking the food. So this one, for example, is usually pollinized by beetles and also wasps, bees. So that's really cool. Next orchid, I have it in my collection, but I don't have it in here. Let's go to the second type of pollination, that is the explosive pollinary mechanics. And how it happened is basically we have literally an explosion. So in Cataseton orchids, it's very, very common, and that's exactly how it happens. We have touching an antenna, and the antenna is inside the flower, triggers a springing action. So the pollen shoots off, complete with a sticky disc, and adheres to the pollinator. Darwin himself described this dramatic emotion after observing it with his own eye on his window pane. So I'm sorry about the Darwin reference here, but that actually happened. So it's such a wild movement, it almost looks like nature's own catapult. And one thing that is super nice about Catacetons for me is this process of pollination. There are many pictures online. Try to find some for you. But yeah, it's an amazing process, and it's basically an explosion of pollen. So these plants are super great. I can't believe the so many and multiple ways that they found to have their pollen spread around. And I'm back here with my Brassica vitellina. Before I talk to you about the third thing that I wrote down to tell you about pollination and about orchid flowers with my Brassica vitellina. If you don't know, this is one of my favorite flowers. I love this plant so, so much. And I just had to research a little bit about how this plant is pollinated so I could tell you. This plant has no fragrance whatsoever, and it's very different. Can you see how bright it is? That's why this one is actually pollinated by hummingbirds. And if you didn't know that, I am crazy about birds. Not like a birds as pets per se, but like a wild birds. I grew up in Brazil surrounded by beautiful birds, multiple colors. They were small birds, always around, and also hummingbirds. So I love to sit in my mom's garden and see the birds outside flying freely in their multitude of different colors and singing. But taking that out of the way, this one is actually pollinated by hummingbirds, which is not very common with orchids actually. The reason why it is pollinated by hummingbirds is that hummingbirds, they are not attracted by fragrance exactly. They are definitely attracted by color. So plants that you see that the color will range in terms of the orange, yellow, and kind of reddy hues are the kind of colors that attract hummingbirds. And it is amazing. This is actually an endangered species in Mexico, and I hope they can have more species in the wild. Please don't collect these plants from the wild. Buy it from places that we know that are not removing it from nature. Anyway, this is my beautiful Brassica vitellina, but let's talk about the third curiosity, and that's the last one for this video. The third one, I've seen plants in my collection that had something similar, and this is the ultra long nectar spur. So that's built specifically for some pollinators. So I have my Angraecum here. This white Angraecum has a very, very long nectar spore. It's very common with some Angraecum as well. The most famous is the Angraecum sesquipedale because it's a massive plant with a very long nectar spore. The plants that I have are very small, so I don't have any plants that I could show something so big as the pedales. But what happened with the next spur is that it is like a tube, so it's a tubular extension that's filled with nectar. Then what is going to happen is that we'll have this super long nectar spur that can get, in the case of the Darwin orchid, can get to 30 centimeters long, and that is going to be filled with nectar. And these plants usually are nighttime fragrant because they will attract a specific type of pollinators that will have a super long structure that can reach the nectar as well. That's why they adapted together. They evolved as well. I would say together because these pollinators, they will need the plant, they will need the nectar from the plant, and the plant needs the pollinator to be able to survive and to keep growing and actually multiplying. So they evolved kind of together. So here another example as well is the Angraecum longicauca that has a 40 centimeter spores as well. And it's really cool to look at these plants and all of these strategies that we have that will make orchids such dramatic creatures and so beautiful. There are so many things that we can learn about these plants. So I love my journey of orchids because I'm always discovering new things. So as you can imagine, here we have some sensory deception through mimicry, as I told you in the beginning. We also have the pollinarian mechanisms so dramatic that explode with the beautiful catasetum orchids that I also adore, and also nectar spurs tailored to the very specific pollinators. So if you enjoy this type of content, let me know down below. I don't know if you're curious about specific facts for orchids. I know that this is not a beginner's kind of video or just talking about how to look after our plants inside our home. It's something a little bit different, but I hope that you enjoy nonetheless. If you did, please hit the like button, leave a comment down below, and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.